Respected soul listening to these words right now, if you have ever felt stuck, frustrated, or quietly afraid that your dreams might never happen, this moment is not an accident. This message is arriving exactly when your brain is ready to change your life. Let me tell you something most people never realize. Your goals are not failing because you are lazy, unlucky, or incapable. They are failing because your brain has been running an old program that was never designed for the future you want. And the beautiful truth is this: the brain can be reprogrammed. Not with wishful thinking, not with hype, but with a simple, intentional process that aligns your thoughts, emotions, and actions into one powerful direction. I want you to imagine for a moment that your mind is like a finely tuned machine. Every belief you hold, every memory you carry, every emotional reaction you've practiced has wired this machine in a very specific way. Right now, whether you realize it or not, your brain is constantly scanning your environment, deciding what's possible and what's not, what's safe and what's risky, what you deserve and what you should avoid. And it does all of this automatically. That's why two people can face the same opportunity and one sees possibility while the other sees fear. It's not intelligence, it's conditioning. Years ago, I met someone who had all the reasons to succeed. They were smart, hardworking, and deeply ambitious. Yet year after year, they stayed in the same place. Same income, same struggles, same quiet disappointment. One night they said something that changed everything for me. They said, "I feel like I'm fighting myself." And that's when it became clear. Their conscious mind wanted success, but their subconscious brain was wired for safety, familiarity, and limitation. This is where the first step of the brain hack begins, and it's the step almost everyone skips: awareness. Not surface level awareness, but deep, honest self-observation. You see, you cannot change a pattern you refuse to look at. Your brain runs on habits of thought the same way your heart runs on rhythm. If you've been telling yourself for years that success is hard, that money is stressful, that you're not good enough yet, your brain believes that story as truth, and it will do everything in its power to prove it right. So I want you to listen carefully. Your results are not random. They are a reflection of the thoughts you rehearse and the emotions you repeatedly feel. Every time you say, "This never works for me," your brain strengthens that pathway. Every time you hesitate, procrastinate, or doubt yourself, you're not failing, you're practicing the old identity. But here's the shift. The moment you become aware of your internal dialogue, you step out of autopilot. You become the observer instead of the prisoner. You start noticing the patterns instead of obeying them. And this alone begins to loosen the grip of limitation. Think about a child learning to walk. They fall again and again, but their brain doesn't label that as failure. It labels it as feedback. Somewhere along the way, many of us learned to attach emotion to setbacks. We made them mean something about who we are. And the brain, wanting to protect us from pain, learned to avoid growth. Awareness is the moment you say, "This thought is not who I am. This fear is not my future. This emotion is just a signal, not a command." When you catch yourself thinking small, playing safe, or delaying action, don't judge it, observe it. Because observation creates distance, and distance creates choice. I once worked with someone who wanted to transform their life but felt overwhelmed every time they thought about change. Their heart would race. Their mind would freeze. Their brain associated growth with danger. So instead of pushing harder, we did something different. We slowed down. We listened to the fear. We asked what it was protecting. And underneath it was a simple belief: if I fail, I'll be judged. That belief wasn't logic. It was conditioning. And once it was seen clearly, it lost its power. The brain no longer had to protect them from a threat that wasn't real. This is why the first step is so powerful. Before you visualize success, before you set goals, before you take action, you must see the invisible scripts running your life. Because the brain will always move you toward what feels familiar, not what you say you want. As you're listening right now, I want you to gently ask yourself one question: what patterns keep repeating in my life? Not with frustration, but with curiosity. The same type of relationships, the same financial ceiling, the same cycle of motivation and burnout. These patterns are clues. They are the fingerprints of your subconscious programming. And here's the hope-filled truth. The moment you see a pattern, you can interrupt it. The moment you name it, you weaken it. The brain is plastic, adaptable, and responsive. It changes through repetition and emotional engagement, which means the same way you learned limitation, you can learn expansion. This first step isn't loud, it's quiet, it's intimate. It's the moment you stop running from yourself and start listening. because every great transformation begins not with force, but with awareness. You don't need to fix everything today. You don't need to have it all figured out. All you need is the willingness to notice what's been shaping your life beneath the surface. That willingness alone opens the door to Chang. And once awareness is established, once you can see how your brain has been operating, something incredible happens. You realize that you are not broken. You are simply programmed, and anything programmed can be rewritten. Now that awareness has begun to wake up inside you, we move into the second step of the brain hack, and this is where real transformation starts to feel possible. Because awareness alone shows you the cage, but this step gives you the key. Your brain does not change through logic alone. You can read all the books, watch all the videos, and understand exactly what you should do, yet still feel stuck. Why? Because the brain learns fastest through emotion and repetition. Whatever you emotionally experience again and again become your identity. And identity, not desire, is what drives behavior. Think about this for a moment. You don't struggle to act in ways that match who you believe you are. If you believe you're confident, you naturally speak up. If you believe you're capable, you naturally take action. If you believe you're unworthy, you naturally hold back. So, the second step is about something powerful and often misunderstood: emotional conditioning. Most people try to change their future while emotionally living in their past. They think about old failures, they replay embarrassing moments, they feel regret, fear, or disappointment, and the brain doesn't know the difference between something happening now and something vividly imagined. So every time you emotionally relive the past, your brain strengthens the wiring of who you used to be. Let me share a truth that may challenge you. Your current reality is not created by what you want. It's created by what you repeatedly feel. Emotions are the chemical signals that tell your brain what matters, and whatever matters gets reinforced. I once spoke with someone who said, "I visualize success every day, but nothing changes." When we went deeper, we discovered something critical. They were visualizing success for a few minutes, but emotionally rehearsing fear and self-doubt for hours. The brain simply followed the stronger signal. So this step is about deliberately installing new emotional experiences before the outside world changes. This is where many people feel uncomfortable, because it requires you to feel like the future version of yourself before there is proof. And the old brain resists that. It says, "Who do you think you are?" It says, "Be realistic." It says, "Don't get your hopes up." But listen carefully. Growth has never come from being realistic. It has always come from being intentional. The brain is a prediction machine. It predicts tomorrow based on yesterday. And if yesterday was filled with stress, doubt, and limitation, it predicts more of the same. But when you interrupt that pattern and repeatedly introduce elevated emotions like gratitude, confidence, purpose, and belief, something extraordinary happens. The brain begins to anticipate a different future. This isn't pretending, this is training. Imagine an athlete before a big competition. They don't wait to feel confident after they win. They rehearse confidence before they step onto the field. Their brain practices the emotional state required for performance. And because the brain cannot distinguish between a real and imagined emotional experience, it begins to wire that state as normal. You can do the same with your goals. Each day, even for a few minutes, you intentionally generate the emotions you would feel if your goal were already achieved. Not the outcome, but the identity, the calm certainty, the pride, the grounded confidence, and you let your body feel it. Because when the body feels it, the brain records it. At first, it will feel unfamiliar, maybe even fake. That's not a sign you're doing it wrong. That's a sign you're doing something new. Familiarity is just repetition, nothing more. There was a time in my life when stepping into a bigger vision felt uncomfortable. My body wanted to return to what was known, but every time I stayed with the elevated emotion just a little longer, I was telling my brain, "This is safe. This is who we are becoming." And slowly, something shifted. Opportunities felt less intimidating. Action felt more natural. Confidence stopped being something I forced and started being something I embodied. This step is about teaching your brain that your future self is not a threat, that success is not dangerous, that expansion is safe. When you emotionally rehearse the person you want to become, you are literally building new neural connections. You are giving your brain a new reference point. And once that reference point is installed, behavior begins to change automatically. You don't have to push as hard. You don't have to rely on motivation because you're no longer trying to become someone else. You're simply acting in alignment with who you're training your brain to be. This is where belief is born, not from affirmations alone, but from repeated emotional experience. And once belief starts to take root, the third step becomes not only possible, but inevitable. By now, something subtle has begun to shift inside you. Awareness has pulled back the curtain. Emotional conditioning has started to rewire the way your future feels. And now we arrive at the third step of the brain hack. This is the step where intention turns into momentum, where the inner change begins to shape the outer world. Here is a truth that very few people understand. Your brain does not respond to goals the way you think it does. It doesn't respond to vague wishes or distant dreams. It responds to clarity, repetition, and decisive action taken in alignment with identity. The brain loves efficiency. It loves certainty. And when something is unclear, it hesitates. Most people say they want success, happiness, freedom, or abundance, but their brain doesn't know what that actually looks like in daily life. So it defaults back to old routines, old habits, and old choices. Not because it wants to sabotage you, but because familiarity feels efficient. This third step is about crystallizing your future into something the brain can follow without confusion. It's about giving your mind a clear signal that says, this is where we're going, and this is who we are becoming. Think of it like setting a destination in a navigation system. If the destination is unclear, the system cannot guide you. It keeps recalculating, it hesitates. But the moment the destination is locked in, every turn begins to make sense. Clarity is power because clarity reduces resistance. I remember working with someone who felt overwhelmed by their goals. They had so many ideas, so many ambitions, and yet felt paralyzed. When we stripped everything down, we realized something profound. Their brain was exhausted by indecision. Every day they were asking, what should I do? Am I doing the right thing? And that constant questioning drained their energy. So we changed one thing. Instead of focusing on everything they wanted, they focused on who they were choosing to become. A person who shows up daily, a person who keeps commitments to themselves, a person who takes one aligned action, even when it's uncomfortable. And something remarkable happened. Their anxiety dropped, their focus sharpened, their energy returned. Because the brain wasn't trying to manage 1,000 possibilities anymore. It was following a clear identity-based direction. This step is about making decisions in advance. When you decide in advance who you are and how you act, you remove the need for willpower. Willpower is unreliable. Identity is automatic. You don't need motivation to breathe. You don't need encouragement to act in ways that match who you believe you are. So, you begin asking different questions. Not what if I fail, but what would my future self do here? Not do I feel ready, but what action aligns with the identity I'm building? Every small action taken from this place sends a powerful signal to the brain. It says, this is real, this is happening. And the brain responds by allocating more focus, more energy, more confidence. At first, these actions may feel small, a conversation you've been avoiding, a routine you commit to, a boundary you finally set. But don't underestimate them. The brain doesn't measure change by size. It measures it by consistency. Each aligned action is a V. OT for your future identity. There's a reason why people who succeed often say, it started with one decision. Not one massive breakthrough, but one clear decision repeated daily. Because repetition turns behavior into habit, and habit turns into character. Your brain is constantly asking one question beneath the surface. Is this who we are now? And every time you act in alignment with your future self, the answer becomes clearer. This is also where setbacks are redefined. When you stumble, you no longer see it as proof that you can't succeed. You see it as feedback, a data point, something to adjust, not a reason to quit. Because your identity is no longer fragile. It's being built through action. This step is not about perfection, it's about direction. And as direction becomes consistent, something powerful begins to emerge. Trust. Trust in yourself, trust in your process, trust in your ability to figure things out as you go. When trust is present, fear loses its grip, doubt quiets down, and momentum begins to carry you forward in ways that effort alone never could. And that brings us to the fourth step, the one that locks everything in and turns temporary change into lasting transformation. This fourth step is where everything comes together. Awareness showed you the patterns. Emotional conditioning rewired how the future feels. Clear identity-based action created momentum. But without this final step, even powerful change can slowly fade. This is the step that makes your transformation sustainable. This is the step that turns growth into a lifestyle. Your brain is not designed to reach a goal and stop. It is designed to reinforce whatever you repeatedly reward. What you celebrate, what you give meaning to, what you emotionally acknowledge, your brain marks as important, and whatever is important gets repeated. Most people unknowingly train their brains in the opposite direction. They downplay progress. They dismiss small wins. They focus on what's missing instead of what's working. And the brain, always listening, learns that effort is unrewarding and growth is exhausting. So the fourth step is integration through reinforcement. This is where you consciously teach your brain this new way of being matters. This is who we are now. Think about how habits are formed, not through intensity, but through consistency and reward. A child repeats behaviors that bring encouragement. An adult repeats behavior that brings emotional payoff. Your brain is no different. Every time you notice yourself acting in alignment with your future self, you pause and acknowledge it, not with arrogance, but with gratitude. You let yourself feel the quiet pride of keeping a promise, the calm satisfaction of choosing growth, the confidence of showing up even when it was uncomfortable. Those emotions are not indulgent, they are instructional. They tell your brain, do this again. I once watched someone completely transform their life, not by working harder, but by changing how they measured success. Instead of waiting for the big outcome, they began to honor the process. They celebrated discipline, they celebrated courage, they celebrated consistency, and their brain fell in love with growth. When that happens, something incredible takes place. You stop relying on external motivation. You don't need constant reminders or pressure, because the brain has associated forward movement with reward. This step is also about reflection. At the end of each day, you ask a simple question. Who did I practice being today? Not what did I achieve, but who did I show up as? Because identity is built through reflection as much as action. When you reflect, you close the learning loop. The brain integrates the experience. It turns today into tomorrow's instinct. This is how change becomes automatic. And here's the deeper truth. When you repeatedly reinforce the identity you're building, your environment begins to respond differently. People treat you differently. Opportunities find you differently. Challenges feel different. Not because the world magically changed, but because you did. You start trusting yourself more. And when self-trust grows, fear has nowhere to hide. You stop asking for permission. You stop waiting to be ready. You stop shrinking to fit old versions of yourself. This is the moment where goals stop feeling heavy. They stop feeling distant. They become expressions of who you are, not burdens you carry. And now, if you look back at the journey, you can see it clearly. You didn't force change, you trained it. You didn't chase success, you aligned with it. You didn't become someone else. You remembered who you were capable of being. This is the real brain hack. Not control, but cooperation. Not pressure, but practice. Not perfection, but presence. And when these four steps work together, something profound happens. Your goals no longer feel like mountains you must climb. They feel like destinations. You are already moving toward respected soul. As these words begin to settle inside you, I want you to understand something deeply and personally. You were never meant to struggle endlessly. You were never meant to feel stuck, small, or powerless. You were designed to grow, to adapt, and to rise. And your brain, the very thing that may have held you back in the past, is also the greatest tool you will ever have to create the life you desire. What you've just learned is not motivation for a moment. It's a framework for a lifetime. Awareness teaches you that you are not your past patterns. Emotional conditioning reminds you that your future must be felt before it is seen. Identity-based action proves that small, aligned steps are more powerful than massive bursts of effort. And reinforcement ensures that the person you are becoming does not fade when life gets busy or difficult. This is not about becoming perfect. It's about becoming. Conscious, conscious of your thoughts, conscious of your emotions, conscious of the choices you make every single day. Because when you are conscious, you are no longer living by accident. You are living by design. There will be days when doubt returns. With the doubt, you observe it, you redirect it, and you continue practicing the person you are becoming. And every time you do, you strengthen the wiring of your future. One day, not far from now, you will look back at this version of yourself and feel gratitude. Gratitude that you chose awareness over autopilot. Gratitude that you trained your mind instead of letting it run you. Gratitude that you didn't wait for permission to change. Your goals are not distant dreams. They are reflections of who you are ready to become. And your brain, when guided with intention, will move heaven and earth to make them real. So take a breath. Feel the calm confidence of knowing you are capable of more. And then take one aligned action today, just one, because that single action, repeated, reinforced, and believed in, has the power to change everything. Your future is not ahead of you. It is being built within you. Right now,